I'm in Zoom. Oh, it's cute, little buddy. So basically the premise is,
Go ahead and pause it. You're recording
oh,
up at the top.
oh,
Okay. Okay, I want to welcome you all today to, if you're interested in publishing, we're going to record this session so that others, we understand there's so much going on campus that we're so appreciative that anybody could even come. We appreciate it. Today it is, I'll give you a little background about Arete so that if any of you have some kind of interest, we'll make sure you're aware of what's available. This volume or this journal was started in 2022 under the leadership of Dean Lamprini, and you see our editing staff there. We had our first volume out in December 2022, and our authors are here with us today. As you can see in our list here, we have SLOT, Student Learning Outcome Tracing Tool. That's Nicole Potts. We have Trent with us here. That is exploring global leadership storytelling for efficacy and well-being among organizational members. And we have our Annie here, localizing the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, a spotlight on Djibouti. And Holly is a virtual. She's microaggressions in the workplace. If they're so small, what's the big problem? And we have another person that will be joining us shortly, Karen Dyer, of the intersection of resilience and global leadership in a VUCA world. So that's our very first volume of the journal. And so I also want to let you know that we have a new volume starting up in the spring and summer, that we have two authors, co-authors that have accepted and are in revision stage, and it's a global movement crisis. It's a case study. So the submissions are due June 15th for the spring, summer, if any of you are interested in that. And just to give you a little idea what's new with Arete, if you go to the journals.smwc.edu, you're going to see some new things. The articles are available in two formats, both PDF and a page flipper. And the other thing to remember is this is a multimedia type journal, which means that you can have multimedia in it. We also have keyword clouds that are being built now from pulling from the keywords that are in the journal. We have just received our ISSN number, and we have some interesting things like our flag of visitors, and we hope to see that flag show new countries. The most recent thing, thanks to someone we have in our audience out here, we have Rusty Tryon, who's director of the library, Rooney Library. He introduced us to Palmy, and Palmy is the private academic library network, and basically we're contracting with them to cover the cost of our open journal system. They're setting it up at their end. They'll assist us with pursuing permanent links and things like DOIs, and they'll connect us to search parameter indexing. So things that you want to see, like impact factors and things like that, those will be coming. And this is basically going to save us over $1,000 a year, but probably the most important thing is it provides us with collaborative support. So it's really a nice feature. This year, we have a Contribution of Excellence Award that we're giving out at the conference tomorrow. The criteria for that is global impact, cross-disciplinary, relevance, thought-provoking, innovativeness, cultural awareness, and diversity. So we will be presenting that award tomorrow. Just so you know, we use 3 external people from other institutions to make the selection, and we had to bring in a 4th person because we had a tie. So just so you know, that makes me feel really good because it tells me how deep our journal is. So I just want you to know that. A little bit about the workflow process, as you can see there. Essentially, this is a peer-reviewed, and in some cases a double-blind peer-reviewed process, and we follow all the requirements that for the code of ethics for journals. So wanted to make sure that you know that we do follow a process. We do use peer-reviewed. We do anonymize it so that they aren't aware of your name if you do the article submission. and so on. And we do go through the 2 reviewers in order to give you the kind of feedback you need. But we work with you. So if you have some issues, we're definitely going to be able to work with you. We have reviewers from around the world, from the USA, UK, Ecuador, Greece. We add new reviewers added each quarter. Some drop off, some stay on, but most of the time for now, we're adding. These are our authors, just so you have the pictures. So the other person that's not here with us today is William Michaels. Penny Quinn's not with us. Tricia Pierce is not with us. And of course, Karen hasn't made it yet, so we're there. But that's just so you know that we do have our authors coming in. Penny and Tricia are the ones that are in the accepted revision stage right now. And theirs is a case study. So we're real pleased to have that as a piece of it. And now I'd like to actually ask some questions of our guests, our authors here today. I'd kind of like to ask you if you could speak to the development process you went through prior to submission. How did you choose what type of article or perspective essay that you wanted to submit? How did you do that? Can I start with you, Anne?
You don't want to start with me. Dr. Jenny, you know how hard it was. It was, I would say my initial process was that I had a topic of curiosity that I didn't know much about, but I wanted to know more. Except that that's what got me into a bunch of trouble. There wasn't a lot of information that I could get hands-on for Djibouti, despite the fact that the country had a bunch of anomalies that I was curious about. So a lot of check-ins. I wouldn't be here without Dr. Jenny's check-ins. And but once the pieces, once I got that one connecting piece, it just then sort of fell into place. But a lot of gathering resources, a lot of pitching resources, a lot of trying to find just that one piece, and then it came together.
Yeah, we all of us learned a lot about Djibouti during that semester. What about you, Trent?
So I started with, by looking at material that I had been collecting, research that had kind of shown up in different assignments, different avenues of my work as a student here at St. Mary of the Woods. And I just started kind of piecing together, what would I do as my cohort mates here all the time. I'm very interested about storytelling. They've heard it so much that I'm sure they're tired of hearing about it. And I started to look at, I wanted to look at what storytelling does at the global organization. And that's kind of hopefully the end goal that I ultimately continue to get to. And so I looked at what I had, and what I will say, particularly for anyone that is really interested in doing this or thinking about doing it, you don't think that you're interested in, my original version did not look anything like what you are looking at if you've read the article or looked at it. And that's perfectly okay, because with a lot of patients from Dr. Mitchell, who was beyond patient on several different occasions, and the reviewers, and just constant changes in work, it got to be the format that it is. And I kind of look at it still and I'm like, can't believe I did that, or that we got that kind of done. And it was a real collaborative effort, but it is at first I didn't think it would ever get done. But it was amazing the growth in that process. And while it's a process, it has paid dividends in my own growth and in just other things that kind of come up in writing that I do now. So that may be more than what you asked for.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. I see that Karen was able to come in, and Karen, we're using the owl. So you're welcome to come up here and talk as well. And while you're coming, you might kind of give us an idea why you chose this type of perspective essay.
I apologize for being late.
That's okay.
The type of essay or my subject?
Your subject.
Oh, I chose resilience because it's something that I've been interested in now for almost 2 years. So kind of interested in how leaders lead through change and disruption, specifically how they've led through the pandemic and what we can learn from that. So I think there's a lot to learn in that area, and it's pretty new to understand those kinds of changes in the world. So
one of the things I really liked about your submission as well, is that you created a little infographic model. And I like that. I like to see how you're bringing things in and making a new model. I thought that was very interesting.
Well, with your encouragement. Actually, it started off as a paper, and you reached out and said you thought this would be a very good submission. So I was encouraged by that, and then I built on it from there. Probably, I feel like my strength is in the lit review. It's something that I like to do, is something that I had spent a lot of time doing in preparation for this, and I feel like that was probably the strongest part of my submission.
Very cool. And Nicole, what about you?
So my whole subject actually started with a major problem that my institution was facing and trying to answer a question with looking at a large amount of data and in a quick turnaround. And basically, I discovered dashboards along my educational route and was kind of surprised that at the time dashboards were not being applied to essentially this type of assessment tracing, because it was definitely quick, available, and easy to use. And so I chose this outlet because I did want to share it with basically all my colleagues. Like, this is available. You can utilize this yourself. You can develop this tool yourself fairly easily within your own institutions, essentially, to answer your questions very quickly. So that's essentially how that came about.
You know, it's surprising because a lot of faculty say the word assessment and they run from the room. You know,
Yes.
because it was an assessment tool, that's for sure. So, Holly, could you talk a little bit about your process?
Sure. So I developed a passion for diversity, equity, and inclusion as a result of my ethical decision-making class as part of my Master of Leadership Development curriculum. And so that is what drove me to write my thesis paper. And I specifically looked at microaggressions in the workplace. And it was through the process of writing my thesis paper, and Dr. Mitchell being my advisor, faculty advisor for my thesis, and she thought it would be a great idea to submit for Arete. So I thought, oh, well, if I can write a 50-page master's thesis on microaggressions, writing a 3,500 word essay is going to be a breeze. And that was not the case. It was actually almost as, I don't want to say difficult, but challenging as writing my thesis. Part of it was taking 50 pages worth of information and distilling it down to that 3,500 words to make sure that I was getting everything that was important in there, and yet staying within the parameters. So it really forced me to evaluate what was most important. And then when I thought I had everything all shored up, I would get emails back saying, hey, you need to support this and you need to have a citation for that. And so kind of like what Trent was saying, however, was that it really made, it really caused a lot of growth. I experienced a lot of growth as a writer, as well as a researcher and a student. And so just like Trent was saying, my final submission was considerably different from my original, even though it was all based on my thesis.
That's very true. I know that I think everyone had some issues at time trying to get things to fit into those templates that we use too. So I do think that had an issue. Well, I have another question. What are the most satisfying and most frustrating elements of the publication process? And any of us start with you, Jen?
Actually, the process itself I thought was pretty smooth. The most challenging part for me was trying to get the right resources to be able to develop enough content and ideas. So again, once that was underway, the process itself, of course, we had the opportunity and benefit of having it also be tied to our coursework. And so the course really helped get those stepping stones to make that process seem really, really smooth. So in addition to the check-ins, just getting that feedback in incremental steps made it really manageable.
Good. What about you, Trent?
I would say pretty much the same thing, is that, you know, I'll start kind of at the end. The satisfying thing is, it's was so cool to have it done, and it's published, and the way that it's set up with the design, I mean, it's a beautiful front page. And I can send that to family who would see me kind of doing things for hours, wondering, what's he doing down there, you know, going back and forth. They could look at that and see that, and it's always something I can go back to, even today, like things that are, when I'm kind of having a frustrating week or moment, I look at it. The frustrating part of it is that you have to quickly learn to kind of manage that a change is just got to be made. And so that's a learning thing to kind of to overcome, that it simply has to be done to get this into the format that it needs. And the cool thing that kind of is the outcome of that, you know, as you're learning to deal with that frustration, is that now I notice that if something I've done, either classwork, Dr. Jenny has seen a few of those examples, if I've not done something right, it's got to be fixed. It's just got to be fixed. And so I will look at, well, here's what I'm going to have to do to get this, and that'll make it right. So I think I'm proud that I published it, that it's published, but I'm also kind of proud of that process that got me kind of thinking about those things in a more methodical, got to get this done, make this right kind of way.
It is humbling, right, to like
Yeah.
have to like pitch something and
Oh,
and realize that subtraction actually makes it stronger.
What about you, Karen?
I think for me, from the frustrating perspective, I tend to be pretty verbose, and I write that way, as so cutting it down without cutting things out that were important, and then trying to say, you know, I found myself, I feel like saying the same thing over and over again a little bit, and trying to find resources that support it without listing the resources and citing everything. One of the comments that the reviewers gave me was something that I just learned in my last class: don't make run-on citations each sentence. So I had a little problem with that. So that was frustrating, figuring out how to put things in my own words and on my own terms without really relying solely on the sources. So that was for me the most frustrating thing. Probably the most rewarding part for me was publishing. I felt really accomplished. But my mentor, who asked me or suggested that I get my master's degree a long time ago, about 20 years ago now, and he's the dean of another college and another institution, printed out the copy, and we got together for lunch, and he was very proud of me. So he's long wanted me to get my doctorate. So that was kind of rewarding, and to see that the respect that comes with being published. So it's your name pop up when you Google it yourself.
That's coming. Yeah.
I haven't had to cite myself yet, but you did warn me that if I continue talking about this, I may have to.
That's right.
So.
You may. That's exactly right. What about you, Nicole?
So for most satisfying, I think it's twofold. I think the first most satisfying thing was that first letter that it was accepted, pending revisions. I think that was like, I did it, it's in, because I've done this several times, and that rejection letter does hurt. So that was probably most satisfying from the publication standpoint. From the moving forward standpoint, this has basically been a springboard for me to build even further. This tool is looking like it's going to turn into an LLC opportunity for me. And so that's been awesome as well. So I was saying that's kind of bigger than just the publication process. But the frustrating elements for me, I've incorporated a video into my article, and video editing and closed captioning was definitely frustrating. So I will say, from the multimedia standpoint, while it was really cool that I got to put that as part of my article, it did open some frustrations and learning curves on how to do video editing.
That's true. I think Nicole's the only one that took advantage of that video, be a part of her publication. But for that particular subject, it is helpful, because I think that makes it easier for people to understand. What about you, Holly? What did you find most satisfying and most frustrating?
Well, I'll reiterate probably much of what's already been said. One of the most satisfying is just being able to say that I'm a published author or a published researcher is fantastic. And from a professional career standpoint, I was able to put that link in my featured section of my LinkedIn page. And so anyone that might be considering me for employment has the ability to go in and actually read my article and see that I can express myself verbally as well as in the written word, and see what kind of ideas I have about leadership and global leadership and diversity and inclusion. One of the most frustrating things, and this might be more for me personally, was that I did the 2-year program in 1 year, so it was very intense. And then just when all the coursework was done, it was a sprint at the end of that marathon to spend all last summer writing, researching and writing my thesis paper and revising the thesis over and over and over again. And then just when that was done, then it was starting all over again with this project. And again, I went into this thinking it was going to be a breeze, and that was I was sorely mistaken. And so it was a lot of work for a long period of time. It was like the marathon that just wouldn't end. And every time I would get something back saying, "Hey, you need to revise this," or "We need that," or da 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 da, I was like, "Oh, again." But I also knew it's going to be better. I know it's making it better. I just need to push through and do what they ask. And it did require me doing even additional research and finding additional sources, even above and beyond the 50 plus that I had in my thesis. So while there was some frustration there, once it was all done, there was also that satisfaction of knowing that it was actually a lot better than I originally anticipated.
Thank you, Holly. I'm going to start with you on this next question, because you're always going at the end. We're going to go backwards now. So Holly, what helped you keep you motivated through this process? Espresso, coffee?
Yeah, a little bit of that. Some of it is just internal to me. When I take on something, I'm going to see it through to the end, come heck or high water. So part of it was that. Part of it was also that even though if we kind of go back to the frustrations, right, reading those comments from the reviewers was a little bit of an ego bruise here and there. I was like, oh, really? But also, every time I made a revision and it was like, this is great and we need this, I could see those incremental improvements in the final product. And I knew that once it was all said and done, that it was going to be something worth reading and worth sharing to the world. So that was what kept me going. And some coffee, yes.
Coffee. What about you, Nicole?
I think it was a combination of me really, really wanting to share what I found out using this tool, and then actually my colleagues. They knew that I was in the middle of this process, and they were, helpful on the end, especially with my frustrations. But video editing, I spent a long time with several of them trying to work through Camtasia or YouTube options. So I would say they helped keep me motivated as well.
Good. Colleagues always can help. What about you?
I think you kept me motivated.
Oh,
So
cool.
I'm pretty passionate about this idea of resilience, and I kind of like to dig into stuff when I am excited about it. And so I think that kept me going. Plus the opportunity for me to have something published and have one of my goals for the PhD program completed was a driver. So that was important.
That's good. That's good.
I want to echo Dr. Jenny. You would offer feedback in a very kind, positive, affirming way. And always, it seemed like you were putting yourself into kind of our shoes, or at least my experience, my shoes of, oh yeah, these will get everybody and that kind of thing. And I really appreciated that, because there were moments when I would look at things and I'd be like, I can't make any sense of this anymore. Like my eyes are starting to go in different ways. And so a human touch in that was big. And the other thing is, I was looking at it, and I'm even thinking today about it, there's traces of this that go back like maybe a year and a half now. And it's cool to see how that all builds upon, builds upon, builds upon. So if anyone that is listening and you've got a shred of anything, or maybe even more than a shred, you've got something there that could probably move forward to something, even if you don't think it. I suspect there's something there. So kind of look for that and keep pushing it a little bit.
Definitely you, Dr. Jenny. You. The topic itself, I was really motivated by, because there were a lot of curiosities that I was trying to figure out. I still haven't figured them out. So the topic itself is motivating for me intrinsically. I want to like get down deeper, but I could not have continued to try and formulate something to present to somebody else without having that incredibly supportive, what about this? Or I found this, or this made me think of what you're working on. And it was that kind of gave me that extra push to feel like somebody's paying attention, I'm gonna keep going. And it means a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate that because, well, you know, first of all, I think having a journal, I mean, this college is what, over 180 years old. It's time to have a peer-reviewed journal. And then, you know, I feel like that there's a lot of talent that goes unnoticed. So I feel like it's time that we get that out there. So this is kind of a question that, you know, you don't have to go in any order, but what do you wish you had known at the start of the process? What would have helped maybe?
The last class we just had with you would have been
Bit
really
better.
helpful to have before we submitted, because I kept second guessing everything I wrote in this article after we went through the evaluation of abstracts and titles, and I kept thinking, oh, was my title okay? You know, what keyword, how did I pick those keywords? So I feel like we had a class about kind of the structure of an article and what makes a good article and what makes a strong article and the research that's behind it. And I think that would have been helpful before, but it definitely made me look back on it and think, oh, I probably would have been, maybe I would have done, approached something a little bit differently. And it certainly would have taken the guessing out a bit more and my fear of some things had I felt like I'd gone through that process before I wrote the article. But it also gave me some perspective for the class, having written an article and then going through this class of where you basically dissect articles for 8 weeks. So that's kind of my thought.
Good. Do we have any questions you'd like to ask the authors?
I have one for you. Any online or other resources that you found particularly helpful, either in the organizing of your thoughts, like anything that tracks your citations and references, or writing assistance, anything along the way? Is there any resources that you found particularly helpful in that process?
I'm sort of a control freak in that I really need to do the references myself. I find that a lot of the ones that generate them for, you know, that'll just automatically generate it, there's always something that's not quite right. Or even, you know, something funny, like they'll put a space in between a word that it's like, why did you do that? So I just put my hand. I have heard a lot
I'm
of
actually
different
the
people who
opposite.
like it.
Yeah,
I know.
I needed APA citation generators. I'm coming from a discipline initially that does not use APA. They use Chicago. And so this was significantly different at times. So without that, I probably would have made way more mistakes on that front than I had. So I would actually have recommended that.
Well,
I would second that myself. I use the generators mainly because it aids in the speed. And then I go back through and double check that all the periods and the commas and the parentheses and the spaces and all of that are correct. But to me, it just shortens the workload a little bit, lessens the workload. The other resource that I used a lot, and I've used this all the way through, you know, back from undergrad, are online resources such as the Purdue OWL, the online writing laboratory, where you can go in, because every now and then there are those really weird, obscure, somebody is citing somebody else in their article, and how do you do that, and what happens when it goes over however many words and all of that. So I use those types of resources quite a bit, especially when I had extenuating circumstances, some of those more obscure types of citations that I was doing, to make sure that I cited them properly.
One thing I would add to kind of my process is, I would say it was a real muddy and messy process, in that I would just kind of get in and just start doing my search, looking for this around storytelling, this around leadership and storytelling. And I would find different references that just took me into more mud. And as I started to collect those in different venues, locations, and started to piece it together, then things started to get really clear for me. I am pretty sure I did not do that process right in the way that I kept track of it, but eventually the muddiness got a whole lot clearer. One of the things in my paper, like when you look at my figure 1, the model for how global leadership storytelling affects well-being and employee performance and self-efficacy, that was something I kind of pushed back against the reviewers on at first, because I wasn't quite seeing it. If I would have done anything different, I would have kind of got into it with the mindset that you don't have to have this fully thought out, that the muddiness of the process is going to give you something like that. Because I probably wouldn't have seen that all my own, but the reviewers were helpful in kind of saying, put that model together. And even today, as I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, that totally makes sense now. It took a while to get to that.
I think we have to give a hand to our reviewers, because I think we do have good reviewers.
Yeah.
So, and I know what you mean, Holly. It's hard sometimes to get comments from a reviewer, but they have their good intention too.
Yeah.
They want you to do
Mhm.
well. So I think that,
Right. Yeah, I learned not to take it personally.
exactly. What'd you say?
We need to give a shout out to Rusty.
Yeah, Rusty.
Our scholarly superhero.
Yeah,
I'll be 2:30 in the morning, I'll find something that, of course, we don't have access to, and morning the next day, it's like, there it is.
yeah, amazing. It's like Superman.
It is.
That is. Well, I do want to just share the steps to publishing into Arete, because we are recording this. We have a lot of faculty that do have interest. They have 2 o'clock classes, a poster show going on. We have recruiting events, all things going on. So I do want to give you the steps so that you'll know. The Arete can be found at journals.smwc.edu, and even when we do make our move to Palmy, we will keep those URLs so that the users won't really see that difference. We do have our articles. I will tell you that we have increased the number of words allowed in our templates, so you'll see that if you go back and look. It's the abstract still the 250. We still have to have a cover letter with a lot of the contractual things. CCBY 4.0 licensing is pretty liberal. And so that's some of the things that we have to make sure of, is that we, and this again is because we want to follow the code of journal ethics. I mean, we definitely want to do that. And the reviewer guidelines, the reviewers actually have a checklist thing that they can work on. And from that checklist, they can add comments. So what happens is that you can have a summarized checklist come in to your letter that will show academic writing style, language quality, clarity, rigor, ethics analysis, validity, and impact. The impact, again, is a reminder that that's how we measure the Contribution of Excellence Award that's given each year. And then open submissions are now. Basically, you register, you review the author guidelines, you download the appropriate template and download the cover template. And then anytime you have questions, you can always ask either me or Dr. Lacomba, and you just follow the on-screen directions on making a submission. One of the things I would add about the submission as well would be that if you if you ever have a concern, if anyone ever has a concern that they don't want to submit, they want somebody to look at it before it goes in, before they submit, we do that. We will look at that. We will give you, and we will be very honest if we feel like it's needs to be more, if there needs to be more of a literature review, or if there needs to be some more substance, we'll definitely be honest with that. But we will try to do it in a way that's supportive, so that it doesn't interfere with your still working toward that level. So I just want to do that. Is there any last comments that our faculty or our authors here would like to make?
I would just like to say that when we first talked about me submitting this or writing something to submit, I felt a sense of fulfillment, because I didn't think yet that I was ready. So I think that challenge is you're ready, be confident and go forward. So.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I feel like this college generates some people that really are deep thinkers. I really believe that. So I'm glad that we had this time to get together, even though we know it's a busy time of the year. Now, I do want to share something. Nicole put together an Arete escape room. I don't know if any of you've done a Google escape room or not. I tell you right now, I was in a couple rooms a few times and had to ask Nicole to help me out. And I should know to be able to answer the questions myself, but she'd say, well, you have too many letters. And, I'm thinking, oh, really? So I'm not the best at the escape rooms, but I do have this escape room link. If some of you would like to, we can send you this PowerPoint form, or we can have you sign in, and Nicole will send you the link if you want to try your hand at the Arete escape room. We were going to give out cookies, and then we found they brought all cookies. So whether you win or not, you have a cookie.
We like that.
Yeah, we like our cookies. So we didn't take the full time, but I want to thank you guys for being here today, and I give you a chance. This is a time that if any of you would like to have, I definitely want a signed article. I want a signature on these from our authors. So we're going to turn this into a little signing opportunity. If you would like to also have a signed article, then we'll get them signed up here, and you can have them as a little keepsake. So that'd be kind of neat to have at the library, like a little cubicle thing, and have
Put it in the archives.
have something kind of cool. I think that would be a really neat thing to have.
So I do have a question.
Okay.
And this comes more from kind of my professional ethics, but this is an open access journal, right? Which
Yes.
means that it is freely available to anyone who has access to the internet. So you
Right.
think about the impact that has locally, but also globally. Certainly there is the element of convenience in publishing in this journal for most of the authors that are affiliated with the college, but does that aspect of this being an open access publication impact maybe where you think about publishing in the future to ensure that there is that equity of access to whatever you might publish in terms of your research in the future or not?
Good question. First of all, I think I wish everything was open access. And I feel like there are some journals out there that will charge authors fees, and I don't like that at all. I think that's wrong. I do see your point that if this is open access, are we going to allow people from other countries to publish in it? And I see no reason why it wouldn't be available. And I'm thrilled that we have made this connection with Paulney and that, because I think that gives it a longitudinal value, not only just in the money, but in the collaboration. I think there's going to be some strong collaboration come from that. So I'm very thrilled about that. What do you guys think?
I can honestly say I picked this journal on purpose because it was open access. From my discipline, most of my journals are not open access in chemistry. They're very expensive, and I think that creates barriers for people to knowledge, and I just don't like that idea.
A lot of the research that I'm looking at is relatively new because it's being done during COVID or around the pandemic. And so just recently, just this past couple of weeks, I've had article after article after article that I couldn't access that I really wanted to read. And I feel strongly about the open access as well. I think it's good that ours is this way, and I wish more were. I haven't asked you yet for those articles. I can discern whether I need to.
I think it's appropriate too, given the global scope, that we absolutely want it to be far reaching.
Well, one of the things with Palmy that I'm so happy about is that they're supporting Open Textbook Network, where they're actually supporting, book adoptions, book reviews, but the books are available in their entirety. And you can ask this group here, I write a lot for my courses. I write a lot. I will create, if I can't find the content that I want it to be presented in a certain way, I will write it. And so I think I'm on my 4th or 5th book for my class, different classes that I've written in. And so one of the things, and I'll just announce this because it's going to come out anyway, but I was able to apply for an open textbook grant with Palmy, and Trent is the co-author with me. He's doing the storytelling part of it. So we're going to be working with looking at data visualization, which is a passion of mine. But anyway, we'll have to have it all done by 2025. So we have some time to get it done.
Back in this.
Yeah, back in this. Okay. Holly, what about you? Have any lasting comments? We sure appreciate you joining us virtually.
Oh, you're more than welcome. I wish I could have been there in person, actually, but it's just a little far from Arkansas. Yeah, I would just say that having gone through this experience, which I already thought I had, having written my thesis paper, but this kind of took it to the next level, has really impacted my business life in terms of how I look at things and how I research things and how I make sure that everything is that I'm saying is backed up and supported. And this whole process going through this has really impacted my career, my business life, and what I publish and put out. And then you were talking about writing a book. And so I actually just wrote a book as well. And I don't think I would have had the confidence to write a book if I hadn't already been published. One of the other authors talked about not feeling like she was ready. And I've had this in the back of my mind for the longest time to write a book. And I've always felt the same thing. Oh, I'm just not ready and I don't have enough information and nobody's going to want to read what I have to say. And having been through this process has given me the confidence that I needed to move forward and actually get it finished. So it's finished. I'm in the process of self-publishing it right now. So yeah, so I have Dr. Mitchell and St. Mary of the Woods College and Arete to thank for that. Great, we appreciate that.
I was going to add one thing to kind of talk to the open access question. One of the things that always mystifies me in this world is that we have all these issues that need change. They need global leadership. They need all the things that are being addressed in these papers. And for academia to take any of that or the education that we provide, kind of hide that away or bury that. I know that there's reasons that happens, but I think for our relevancy, for that change, for all those things, to get this out there so that somebody, for example, trying to understand why they're not connecting in their organization. Well, maybe you need communication that has more storytelling aspects. How do we adapt and change? How do educators get better at the things they truly need to do around assessment? All this to say is that if this does an ounce of helping anyone towards that, let's open that up. To me, that is my honest take.
Rusty, you've done a tremendous job with their library. Do you have any advice that you might give for people that are interested in open access?
Do it.
Just do it.
To me, I mean, I'm biased in my perspective, but to me, any benefits far outweigh any negatives or downsides to publishing open access. You're not gonna become rich by publishing an article, right? So why not open it up for the benefits and the reasons that Gloria mentioned. To me, it's just a win-win to go to open access.
It is. And I will just to let you know, I've had these questions. One of them was about the impact factor and DOIs and things, and those things are coming. One of the things you have to do is you have to basically kind of go through the fire a little bit. You have to have 2 submissions in a year worth of life in your open journal system in order to go to some of the next steps. And we will be doing those with Polly, that we'll have some direction from them. But that is, that is our hope and goal, is that we end up with DOIs for this. I would suggest as authors that you start looking at your ORCID IDs, get those ORCID IDs in there so that it can start following your work. I would also suggest that, don't wait to do another Arete. Think about how you can have it, maybe a slightly different topic. And Lisa out there, I know you could put one in tomorrow. We know that from you, so definitely.
She's been cited.
Yeah,
Mhm.
there we
For
go.
the master's thesis.
But
Still.
exactly. We know, we have some budding authors out there, and it is a work, but I think it's one of those things that's very rewarding. And, I'm proud of all of you. So I'm proud of all the authors that we've had come through here. So I'm just hoping that, when we have this event each year and around the conference time, we'll just have more and more growing authors. So, but we might pick a different time of the day, not a class time, a very popular class time. Well, I think if that gets our questions answered, if anybody would like to do the Arete escape room, we can send the email or we can either send the PowerPoint out to you so you'll have it, or you can have we can however you want to do it. Or if you don't want to play it, if you just want to get some cookies and drink, that's good too.
Can I access it on the phone?
Yeah, I just need an email from.
Yeah,
someone here to
she's
send
in
it to-
charge of that. I'm not the best
Yeah,
at that.
if you-
I'm gonna go
if
ahead and
you like
pause,
to give me
stop
your
our
email,
recording
I can
then.
send you everything.